Food for thought here on largest companies in terms of market value, transcending not just NASDAQ, not just Dow Jones or S&P, but to focus on S&P for a second, this piece of information comes from several sources, specifically Goldman Sachs, in addition to an equity research individual, Maverick Equity. So Keith Fitz-Gerald had broadened and expanded the reach of this research. So as we see in this chart here, way back in the day, it would be going back to really the 1950s, we have an example of General Motors being the largest in terms of market value, market cap, within the S&P 500. And General Motors was that up and through the early 70s. Then we see that IBM took over that top spot throughout the majority of the 70s and the majority of the 80s, and it was only a one-year window where AT&T was the largest company as of, I guess, 81 to 82. Then we see ExxonMobil was the largest company in the late 80s, early 90s. General Electric was the largest company in the S&P in the mid-90s. Microsoft in the late 90s. And then surprisingly, again, General Electric in the early 2000s, before all the accounting scandals. Then we have ExxonMobil, again, in the late 2000s, early 2010s. And then Apple Computer has been the largest company in terms of market valuation, minus the year 2018. And now we know that in the next few years, it's going to be a three-horse race. So it says, according to Keith Fitzgerald, size matters more than ever. We talk a lot about the transition from making things to technology as part of the investing process and key to a financial future and financial well-being. So admittedly, it's hard to visualize for many, and that's why Keith is a big fan of sharing powerful images that make the point whenever we all come across them. This one from Goldman Sachs does the job as seen in this illustration. Keith expects Nvidia, Apple, and Microsoft to dominate the investing landscape through much of this decade of the 2020s, perhaps longer, he says. And the investing implication is that millions of folks are making a critical mistake by thinking about AI as just another tech when in fact it is likely, very likely, the greatest technology shift in recorded human history. So as Keith frequently says in his emails, buy the best, ignore the rest. The investment thesis, which Keith pretty much subscribes to, or is really the co-author, if you will, is that disproportionate allocation to the absolute market leaders, the absolute tier 1, tier 2, position 1, position 2, and then if you insist, the highest market cap company, which he likes to say is called fortress-like balance sheets. So now we're talking about the Nvidias, the Apples, the Microsoft still. Microsoft, of course, is OpenAI is still private. It's not public, but I think Microsoft has more than 40% of all of the shares and equity of OpenAI as a private company. It's been that way since 2019, if not earlier. So in summary, this visualization, which was shared and then disseminated and then shared widely across all the readers and viewers and from Maverick Equity on Twitter, was that Goldman Sachs research demonstrates the largest company over time in terms of market valuation. And we can see that back in the day, it was an automobile company. Then it was sort of a hardware company with IBM. Then it was GE, which, if you believe in the business model of GE, at least during the Jack Welch days, was quite diverse. They even owned NBC for a while. But Microsoft stuck in there, and then oil again, and then it's been Apple for the last decade plus. And he believes it's going to continue to be Apple or Microsoft or Nvidia. as the top three competing for to be the largest company in the S&P 500. So consistent and solid investment thesis backed by history. And so the argument that Keith makes is that the more time you spend dedicated to and committed to these types of outstanding market-leading, industry-leading stocks, the safer you're probably going to be, because you want to have a disproportionate amount of your resources in the stocks that are really just going to outperform. And it's as simple as that. And it's an investment thesis that I certainly subscribe to and try to practice and not contradict myself on with great success, specifically with Apple and Microsoft. These last few years, it's just been truly phenomenal performance. So this chart helps demonstrate how trends change over time, market leaders and industries change over time, and the AI play will be really owned and then disproportionately owned by Apple and Microsoft and Nvidia, because these are the market leaders, whether it's on the hardware side or software side.